Have you ever wondered what the Olympic rings mean? To answer that, we must travel back in time to 1894. Picture this: Pierre de Frédy, Baron de Coubertin, a French aristocrat with a passion for physical education, decides to bring back the ancient Olympic Games. His idea wasn't new. He first proposed it in 1889, but it was in 1894 that his vision truly began to take shape. He convened a congress in Paris, and this time his proposal was met with agreement. The International Olympic Committee, or IOC, was born, and the task of planning the inaugural modern Olympic Games, set to take place in Athens in 1896, was underway. But the iconic symbol that we associate with the Olympics today, the 5 interlocked rings, was yet to be introduced. That wouldn't happen until after the 1912 Stockholm Games. So the stage was set, but the symbol we know today wasn't introduced until after the 1912 Stockholm Games. After the 1912 Games, a design of 5 interlocked rings began to take shape. Pierre de Coubertin, the driving force behind the modern Olympic Games, was also the artist behind this design. The first glimpse of the rings appeared at the top of a letter Coubertin wrote to a colleague after the Stockholm Games, the first games that included athletes from all 5 inhabited parts of the world. The design was simple, yet powerful. 5 rings, interlocked, coloured blue, yellow, black, green and red on a white background. It was a symbol of unity, a representation of the 5 inhabited continents of the world, bound together by the spirit of the Olympics. The 6 colours were chosen because they were found on all the national flags of the world at that time. The rings were more than just a design, they were a symbol, a celebration. In 1914, Coubertin used the ring design as the emblem of the International Olympic Committee's 20th anniversary celebration. It was a symbol of the progress that had been made, the unity that had been fostered, and the global platform that had been created. The rings were slated to make their official debut at the 1916 Games, gracing flags and signage. However, the world was at war, and the Games were cancelled, so the rings had to wait 4 more years for their moment in the spotlight. In 1920, at the Games in Antwerp, Belgium, the rings finally made their grand appearance. However, Coubertin's design was open to interpretation. While he had stated that the rings and colours represented the continents and the national flags, there was no specific correlation between individual rings and individual continents. This ambiguity, rather than creating confusion, added to the universal appeal of the design. Coubertin had created a symbol that represented unity and inclusivity, but what did the colours and rings really mean? Coubertin explained the meaning of the rings in 1931, and it's as symbolic as you might expect. He described the ring design as a white background with 5 interlaced rings in the centre. The colours of these rings are blue, yellow, black, green and red. The symbolism here is twofold. Firstly, the 5 rings represent the 5 inhabited continents of the world. This aligns with Coubertin's vision of the Olympics as a global event, uniting the world through the spirit of sportsmanship and the pursuit of athletic excellence. It's a beautiful concept, really. The idea that every 4 years, athletes from across the globe gather in one place, putting aside politics, disputes and differences to compete in a spirit of respect and camaraderie. Secondly, the 6 colours of the rings, including the white background, were chosen because they appear on all national flags around the world at that time. This further emphasises the universal inclusivity of the Games. Regardless of where you come from, your nation's colours are represented in the Olympic rings. However, it's essential to note that Coubertin never assigned any specific ring to a particular continent. This was a deliberate move to underscore the universality of the Olympic movement, allowing any continent to identify with any colour. But let's take a step back. Although today we see the rings as the symbol of the Olympic Games, that wasn't their original purpose. According to historian David Young, Coubertin likely initially designed the rings to mark the 20th anniversary of the International Olympic Committee. They represented the 5 games that had been successfully held by then. So while the rings have become iconic, symbolising unity, inclusivity and the spirit of the Games, their origin might be a little different than you think. The rings have evolved to embody the essence of the Olympics, but they started as a simple celebration of the Games' progress and the International Olympic Committee's anniversary. Popular myth and modern inspiration played a part in shaping the symbol we know today. One such myth ties the origins of the Olympic rings to an ancient design found on a stone at Delphi, Greece. Yet, this is a case of theatrics trumping historical fact. This ancient stone was actually a modern prop, a part of the elaborate spectacle orchestrated by Karl Diem, president of the organizing committee for the 1936 Summer Games in Berlin. Diem, with his flair for drama, had the Olympic flame relayed from its origin point in Olympia to the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. This relay included a stop at Delphi's ancient stadium, where a faux ancient Greek torchbearers ceremony was staged, complete with a monumental 3-foot-tall stone altar bearing the modern ring design. The stone, however, was never removed after the ceremony. In the following decades, British researchers visiting Delphi stumbled upon the ring design on the stone, mistaking it for an ancient altar and erroneously linking the ring design to ancient Greece. The real story behind the altar eventually came to light, and the stone, now known as Karl Diem's stone, was moved from the stadium and placed near the entrance to the historic site. As for the real inspiration behind Coubertin's iconic design, it seems to be a touch more contemporary. 4 years prior to Coubertin's Olympic Congress, he had assumed the presidency of the French sports governing body, the Union des Sociétés Françaises de Sport Athlétique. This union was the result of a merger between two smaller sporting bodies, symbolized by a logo of 2 interlocking rings, one red and one blue. This concept of unity and interconnectedness likely served as inspiration for Coubertin's 5 interlocked rings, representing the 5 inhabited continents coming together in the spirit of the Games. So there you have it, the Olympic rings, a symbol of unity, inclusivity, and the spirit of competition that transcends borders and continents. A symbol that, like the Games themselves, has a history as rich and varied